Hi. We're going to look at chapter 15 of the Tao Te Ching now. But before we do, I want to go back and look at one line in chapter 14. It's this line right here, where the Chinese said, "Hold in hand, ancient of way, use, manage, now of be." And I translated that, hold to the ancient way, let it guide your current steps. But what I want to really point out is exactly what the Chinese characters said. These last 5 characters: use, manage, now, of, be. Right? This be points back to this use, this be points back to this manage, and of course, this be points back to now. So what this really is telling me is the way isn't just guiding my current steps. It's guiding my way of being while I'm taking those current steps, right? This be points back to use, back to manage, and of course, back to now. The reason I wanted to bring that up is because the next chapter that we're going to look at, chapter 15, really points at ways of being. Let me read chapter 15 from my translation. I called chapter 15 the Ancient Masters. The ancient masters were subtle, mysterious, connected, and more profound than we can know. Since we cannot know them directly, we are forced to let their actions speak. They were, and here, listen to the ways of being in this. They were at ease, as if crossing a frozen creek. Still, as if not wanting the neighbors to discover them. Respectful, like a house guest. Dissolving, like melting ice. Honest, simple, and vastly empty, like a valley. Mysterious, like muddy water. Tranquil, like the depths of the sea. Like wind in a high place, nothing could stop them. Who can patiently rest with confusion until they are clear? Who can remain still, unhurried in movement until awakened? Persevere in the way by desiring nothing. Only people who are not distracted by worldly desires can retreat from the world and become new. So this was another very interesting chapter to translate. Of course, when I was translating, remember, I wasn't just using the Chinese characters. First, I would translate the Chinese characters myself, but then I would go and look at how others had translated them before and look back at mine and see if I really felt that I made some genuine error that needed to be corrected. And one thing that was really interesting about this particular chapter is because when I was using my dictionary and translating the characters according to my dictionary, and remember, I was using 3 dictionaries, I couldn't always find the same translation that I would see as common, commonly used by others. And so in the end, I had to make a decision. Was I going to copy others just because this is what everybody else had typically done? Or was I going to be brave enough, possibly foolish enough, to translate based on the dictionaries I had and my own direct experience. And in the end, I chose to go with the dictionaries I had and my own direct experience. But I'm going to show you what some of these differences were. Now, the first part, the first paragraph, very similar. Everybody, of course, always does it a little different, but very, very similar. So this part, we don't really need to look at. The ancient masters were subtle, mysterious, connected, and more profound than we can know. Since we cannot know them directly, we are forced to let their actions speak. Or the character for actions could also have been appearance. So we could have said, since we cannot know them directly, we're forced to let their appearance speak. Either is correct. Basically, what we're saying is, since the mind can't understand them, since we don't know what they knew, all we have is their outer appearance or their outer actions and the way they acted. That's really all we have to kind of point to their profound knowledge. And pretty much everybody got that same first paragraph, even though it may be worded a little differently. The gist of that was the same. Where the challenge came in was with the descriptors and the next paragraph, what I called the ways of being. So starting here. You'll notice what I have translated as the first line is at ease, and then exclamation point. This second character right here is an exclamation point. Here it is again, exclamation point. You can see there's going to be lots of exclamation points coming up. You see this character repeated, right? So at ease, exclamation point. Similar, winter wade across creek. This is a creek or a stream. You can see it kind of looks like a creek or a stream. Just like, exclamation point, like fear for neighbor. And I translated that at ease, as if crossing a frozen creek. Still, as if not wanting the neighbors to discover them. So first, let's look at the at ease. The typical way of translating this is more like cautious, as if crossing a frozen creek, or cautious, as if crossing a winter stream is another popular translation. Sometimes people say hesitant. Occasionally, I might see the word alert here. I actually like the word alert because if you're crossing a frozen creek, or a winter stream that's partially frozen, you are going to be very alert because, the water often is still running underneath, and you got to make sure that where you're stepping, your foot is not going to break through. So alert is probably my favorite. But let me show you why I chose at ease. If we go to my dictionary, and again, I checked this in several dictionaries. This is the character we're looking at. Notice this character means happy, carefree, at one's ease. Now, combined with another character, it means to hesitate. But I didn't have it combined with this other character. I had it by itself. Today, I decided just for the heck of it, before preparing for this video, I decided to go and ask Gemini what the character means. And notice Gemini gave the same answers: happy, carefree, at one's ease, and then also said it could mean to prepare or beforehand, which is something I hadn't seen. Of course, when I was translating, I used 3 dictionaries, and they all pointed to at ease. And so this is why, of course, I translated this at ease as if crossing a frozen creek. Like I said, I chose to go with what I was seeing in the dictionaries. Also, at ease, not worried, not fearful. That comes from my direct experience of being aware of the Tao, of knowing that the Tao is taking care of all things, including guiding my steps across the frozen creek, if I'm really tuned into that intuition as I'm crossing the creek. And so, because there's so much trust in the Tao, because there's so much experience in the Tao, at ease really does make sense, even though I haven't seen anyone else translate it that way. So again, rightfully or wrongfully, I went with what I was finding in the dictionary and with my own experience. If we go back and look at this next part, this first character right here translates as yet or just like. So this could have said yet, like fear for neighbor. Now, if I had gone with yet, then this really would have said kind of like at ease and cautious, or maybe at ease and alert, because I'm at ease, yet I'm fearing my four neighbors. And four neighbors means neighbors to the north, south, east, and west. So all directions around me. So I'm at ease, yet I'm like fearing my four neighbors. So I'm at ease, yet I'm cautious, or I'm at ease, yet I'm alert, right? It doesn't really give us the word there. It just says yet, or again, this could be translated as just like. So we kind of have to use our own understanding to determine what word should go there. I ended up choosing the word still, because I was imagining, I was contemplating, like I often do, contemplating if there were four neighbors around me. And again, I took the word fear lightly, because I don't think that someone who's really in touch with the Tao experiences fear, not from my own direct experience. So I took the word fear lightly, but the four neighbors around, these must be enemies. They're probably not four families. It's probably more like four kingdoms that are not my kingdom during a time of warring kingdoms in China, right? So I have to be cautious of my four neighbors because they are not of my kingdom. So I was contemplating, if I'm a master and I'm in a place where the people around me are not necessarily friendly to me, how am I going to be? Am I going to be fearful? I chose I'm going to be still, or I'm going to be quiet. So even though the character translated as to yet or just like, I chose still. Now, I already told you that if I had chosen yet here, then it would be at ease, like crossing a frozen creek, yet also like fearing four neighbors. However, listen to this, because just like was another option. At ease, like crossing a frozen creek, just like when you fear the four neighbors. Well, now am I at ease, and whatever I pick here is similar. If it had said yet, they would have been opposite, right? At ease, yet cautious, right? At ease, yet alert, which I like at ease, yet alert. But if I choose just like, at ease, just like, still. So in the end, I chose to translate this at ease, as if crossing a frozen creek, still, as if not wanting the neighbors to discover them. But I could have translated it, and I probably would have been just as happy with this translation. At ease, as if crossing a frozen creek, yet alert, as if not wanting the neighbors to discover them. Right? So that was some possibilities there. Next, respectful, like a house guest. That's fairly common. dissolving like melting ice. That's not really uncommon. People pick different words, but they basically have the same meaning. Sometimes people say yielding like melting ice, right? This one, honest, sincere, his, her, like simple. And what a lot of people found there in that place was like block of wood. I looked and looked and looked. I wanted to find block of wood like everybody else did, but I couldn't find it. What I found was simple. And I noticed that some people translated it as simple like a block of wood. Yet we don't have those characters here. We have honest, sincere, exclamation point, his, her, like, simple. We don't have block of wood there. So I'm not sure how the block of wood got involved. Maybe I'm mistranslating. Maybe it's been tradition and people continue to use the tradition. I genuinely don't know. But when I looked at the characters, I saw honest, sincere, exclamation point, his, her, like, simple. And so I said honest and simple. That's all the further I went with that. And then I combined these because this one was extensive or empty, his, her, like a valley. So I said honest, simple, and vastly empty, like a valley. Typically, this is two sentences. It might say something like, in fact, often instead of honest or sincere, people use plain, like a block of wood, and vast like a valley. Something like that might be how people translate it. But I said honest, simple, and vastly empty like a valley. Mix, his, her, like turbid or muddy. I said mysterious. Of course, the mix here would be the mixture of the mud and the water, I believe, even though the word water isn't here. I think this is implied. So the mud and the water is mixed together and you look down inside and you can't see. So you don't know what's down there. So that's why I chose the word mysterious to go in place of mix. And then I have also muddy water, which also combines the idea of the mix. Mysterious, like muddy water. Tranquil, his, her, like ocean. I said tranquil, like the depths of the sea. Wind in high places, like no stop. Like wind in a high place, nothing could stop them. Now this part gets very interesting as well. These are questions, clearly, because they start with who. So who can turbid, muddy, use still of slowly? So the slowly points back to the still. Who can turbid, money use still of slowly and then clear, pure? So I said, who can patiently rest? That's my slowly and my still together. Who can patiently rest with confusion? That's my turbid and my muddy until they are clear. Next, who can still use move of slowly? So now the slowly points back to the movement. Who can still use move of slowly, born life? I said, who can remain still, unhurried in movement, slowly of move, right? Who can remain still, unhurried of movement until I saw born or life as awakened, or as Jesus would have said, born again, awakened to the Tao, that new life that comes from awakening to the Tao. Who can remain still, unhurried in movement until awakened? Keep this way, this is the Tao, this is the character for the Tao, this third character. Keep this way person involved in no desire. Keep this way is like keep to the way or keep to the Tao. The person is involved in no desire. So I wrote, persevere in the way by desiring nothing. And then the next line is very interesting. Man only, no full, therefore, can hide and new become. Man only, we could use the word person here. It's the same person. It's pointing back to the person in the previous line. Man only, no full, the person that is not full, therefore, that's what this is saying. The person that is not full, therefore, can hide and become new. Persevere in the way by desiring nothing. The person who is not full, therefore, can hide, or we could say can retreat from the world and become new. I translated that as only people who are not distracted by worldly desires can retreat from the world and become new. Persevere in the way by desiring nothing. Only people who are not distracted by worldly desires can retreat from the world and become new. But I want to show you something. Now, this is a version of the Tao that I've shared with you before, but I've also told you I didn't have this when I did my own word for word. So just today, I was looking at their word for word and comparing their word for word to my word for word. But I found something very interesting. If we look at how they translated these last two lines, starting with persevere in the way, here's what they say. Maintain the Tao, that's very similar to persevere in the way. You won't want to be full, very similar to by desiring nothing, right? Maintain the Tao, you won't want to be full. But then look at this line. If you're not full, that's very similar. I have man only, no full, right? Very similar to only people who are not distracted by worldly desires, right? They're not full. If you're not full, and then they said, there is no need to be renewed. I said, in effect, if you're not full, then you can hide and new become, right? Then you can retreat from the world and become new. They say there's no need to be renewed. That's exactly the opposite. So I went and I looked at their word for word, and what I found was, first, just looking at the English, I found that their word for word was different because their word for word says, so for not full, therefore, can, cover, not new become. That's different. They have so instead of man only. Their so points back to this previous line, just like my man only pointed back to this previous line and this previous person. So for not full, well, I have only no full. Therefore, can cover, which is a lot like hide, but then they have not new become. I had and new become. Well, not new become would explain why their translation says there's no need to be renewed. But I had and new become. So I decided to look at their Chinese characters. And do you know what I found? Right here, this particular character means and. But their Chinese characters were different. Let me see if I can show you. See if I can get real close here. If you look here, their character where I have and, they have bu, which means it's a negative prefix. It can mean no, it can mean not. Like here, there was no full, right? I have the bu in the first part, no full. But here, they had no become new. I had a different character. I had and. See, here's the no. You can see what that looks like. But I had and. So I started thinking, oh my goodness, no wonder theirs is different. They have different Chinese characters. So what I did today is I went and I looked up as many Chinese transcripts as I could find of chapter 15. This is the one that's on Wiki. And I started looking at that last line. This particular version has and, which is what I had. And of course, they said, and such freshness be ever renewed, right? So they have, this is renewing is going on because there's an and. Then I found this one, and it has the and. And of course, you can see the word and here. And then I found this one, and it has and. And in fact, as I point at it, it says and, right, as well as. So, so my translation is different from theirs because I had a different transcript, but today in searching, the other transcripts I found were the same as mine. But it occurred to me that this could be one reason, another reason, why sometimes we find differences in the Tao. Sometimes, again, a Chinese character has many meanings, and we're picking the meaning that we feel fits. And so we're picking different words for the same Chinese character. But maybe there's more than one transcript of the Tao out there, and sometimes the characters are different. And if the characters are different, it's going to change the meaning. In this case, either when you're not full, you do not need to be renewed, probably because you have no desire, or when you're not full or when you're not distracted by worldly desires, you are able to retreat and become renewed. And the truth is, either one of those makes sense to me. So let me just read my translation again, and then we'll look at one more translation. The ancient masters were subtle, mysterious, connected, and more profound than we can know. Since we cannot know them directly, we are forced to let their actions or their appearance speak. They were at ease, as if crossing a frozen creek, still, as if not wanting the neighbors to discover them, respectful, like a house guest, dissolving, like melting ice, honest, simple, and vastly empty, like a valley, mysterious like muddy water, tranquil like the depths of the sea, like wind in a high place. Nothing could stop them. Who can patiently rest with confusion until they are clear? Who can remain still, unhurried in movement until awakened? Here's the answer to that, to those two questions. Persevere in the way by desiring nothing. Only people who are not distracted by worldly desires can retreat from the world and become new. So who can patiently rest with confusion until they are clear? Those who are not distracted by worldly desires. Who can remain still, unhurried in movement until they awaken? Those who are not distracted by worldly desires. Let's look at another version of the Tao Te Ching, chapter 15. This is by Archie J. Baum. This one is quite interesting. In primitive times, intelligent men had an intuitively penetrating grasp of reality, which could not be stated in words. Since their instinctive beliefs have not been recorded for us, we can only infer them from old sayings which have come down to us. And although most of the translations I see say we can only know them by their appearance, or we can only know them by their actions, or I can only draw a picture of them for you, right? I have seen a couple others that say we have these old sayings that point to them. So somewhere that idea is getting into some of these translations. So again, since their instinctive beliefs have not been recorded for us, we can only infer them from old sayings which have come down to us. regarding caution when crossing a stream in winter. The more nervous you are, the more likely you are to slip and fall. In other words, this is saying, don't be nervous, be at ease. Regarding suspicion of enemies. Remember, I said those 4 neighbors were probably other kingdoms, enemies. Regarding suspicion of enemies, the more you fear others, the more they will be afraid of you. So there we go. This is saying, do not fear, where most people translate it literally as if there is fear. Regarding courtesy as a guest, the longer the stay, the more you become indebted to your host. Regarding melting ice, the more you do to prevent it from melting, the quicker it melts. Regarding making furniture, the more you carve the wood, the weaker it gets. Regarding digging ditches, the steeper you slope their sides, the sooner they will wash down. Regarding muddy water, the more you try to stir the dirt out of it, the murkier it gets. What then should we do in order to clear the muddy water? Leave it alone, and the dirt will settle out by itself. What then must we do in order to achieve contentment? Let each thing act according to its own nature, and it will eventually come to rest in its own way. Those who fully comprehend the true nature of existence do not try to push things to excess. And because they do not try to push things to excess, they are able to satisfy their needs repeatedly without exhausting themselves. And that one, I admit, is quite different from all of the others, but I figured you could find the others on your own, and they're more similar. So I wanted to share the one that was quite different. In fact, let me go ahead and share all of chapter 15 from this version. This is more like the more common ones, with the exception of how I showed you the last line is different because of the no instead of the and. The ancient masters were subtle, deep, mysterious. We can't understand their mysterious depths. We can't understand them, but we must try to describe them. Cautious, as if crossing a winter stream. Watchful, as if afraid of threats from all sides. Respectful, like a visiting guest. Yielding, like the breakup of winter ice. Simple and honest, like an uncarved block. Wide and open, like a valley. Murky, like muddy water. Who can take muddy water and through stillness make it clear? Who can take what is tranquil and through movement bring it to life? So that was translated a little differently. Maintain the Tao. You won't want to be full. If you're not full, there is no need to be renewed. I just happened to think, I told you I couldn't find the block in my word for word. I'm looking to see if the block of wood or the uncarved block of wood that often shows up in these translations is in their word for word, and it is not. Their word for word there says honest, him, her, like, and then either rough or simple. And remember, I chose simple. Doesn't say anything about a block of wood, and yet they also used, oops, I'm sorry, I don't think you could see that. Okay, let's try that. Honest, right? Him, her, like, either rough or simple, and I chose simple. Doesn't say anything about a block of wood, and yet they also use the uncarved block of wood. Am I pointing? Yeah, uncarved block in there. So I don't know where this uncarved block of wood is coming. I didn't find it in the characters, even though they seem to be using slightly different characters than me. It's not in their characters, yet almost everybody includes that uncarved block in the translation. Since I couldn't find it, I chose not to just copy everyone else. I went with the characters as I saw them. And what I saw was simply the word simple. Again, this is the line where I said honest, simple. That's all I found. Honest, simple, and vastly empty like a valley. All right, let's get on with the assignment then. Remembering that the chapter before said I said, hold to the ancient way, let it guide your current steps. But what it really said was hold in hand, ancient of way, use, manage now of be. We're focused on ways of being. How do we be when we're in touch with the way? What does that look like? What I'd like you to do is just contemplate that. We're not judging whether I look like that. We're not judging me, not meaning Regina, but you would not judge your me, right? We're not judging, am I doing that? Am I failing? We're not judging. We're merely contemplating what are the natural ways of being that come from being in touch with the Tao. What is this part pointing to when it says at ease, as if crossing frozen streaks, still as if not wanting the neighbors to discover them, respectful, dissolving is a good one to contemplate, honest, simple, vastly empty, mysterious, tranquil, like wind in a high place, nothing could stop them. What is this pointing to? Right? What are these ways of being? Contemplate that, and then, journal on that. Journal and get your own clarity about what this is pointing to. And I think that's it. All right. So I'll see you next time when we look at chapter 16. Bye.